All right. How is everyone doing? I'm Sequoia, the digital product manager at M13. I'm super excited for this webinar because we're going to talk about connectivity in some extremely innovative ways that you may or may not have heard of. In my role at M13, I'm currently building a platform along with our core M13 team to not only supply a knowledge base, but to help founders see around corners and to connect you all and bring you together in a community environment. So just to give you some background on M13, in case you don't already know, we are a full service venture engine that invests in early consumer tech products and companies. All of our partners are founders and operators and have joined M13 specifically to help by tapping into past experiences and to guide entrepreneurs. And as I stated before, to help them see around corners. So we thank you for joining this webinar. We host webinars for our community of founders, entrepreneurs, and investors, pretty much anyone in a leadership role who wants to learn, grow, and share. And we want to encourage you all to continue to tap in. And most of all, we appreciate you taking your time out because you could be anywhere but here. We do realize that, and you chose to be with us. So we do appreciate it. So here's the format for the next hour. We're going to open up a discussion with two incredible founders. If you have questions, there's a questions tab below. Just click on it and submit the question, and I will weave them in and make them where relevant. I hope you guys are ready because I sure am. So first and foremost, we have Sly Lee, co-founder of Emerge, an immersive communication and XR platform that brings us closer by creating meaningful bonds over distance and time. The vision for the company is to be the most empathic frontier technology company around. Next, we have Sam Wang, the founder of ProGuides, an esports platform whose mission is to inspire, instruct, and connect the next generation of gamers. The purpose of the platform is to help gamers take their play to a whole new level. How are you guys?
Doing really well today, Sequoia. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. So great. Before we jump into the details, I want to give you guys both the opportunity to quickly demo your products because you guys have a pretty large scope and we're talking about two big picture revolutionary products.
Hey guys. Yeah. So at ProGuides, we're like the masterclass of esports. So we have these awesome videos you can watch to learn how to play video games. And after you're done, you can actually play with a coach on demand, one-on-one live coaching. And basically, they're all with all the most famous pros in gaming. So if you play a game like League of Legends or Fortnite or even Super Smash Brothers, you're going to be able to find them right at ProGuides anytime you want. So I'm going to give you a little demo today. We actually launched a new feature outside of just the core course videos and the coaching, and they're called live classes. We launched this on Saturday, and they're right now in beta, but the idea is that outside of just watching a pro teach you how to play, you can do it live streamed and actually ask questions just like this webinar. And at the end of each class, we do something really fun. Basically, the people who are watching, they get to actually play live with the pro themselves on screen. The instructor will choose between 5 to 10 lucky fans, and then they can actually join a game and he'll either talk about the game or he'll literally be their teammate and play with them live, and people love it. So first, I'm gonna show you a free version of our class. So right now I'm sharing my screen. This is actually live on our YouTube channel, which now has over 1.2 million subscribers. There's about 1,200 people online right now. The chats get very, if you can see my screen, it gets a little spammy because there are a lot of people currently engaged. But the idea is that we do these promotional ones on YouTube to funnel a lot of the free users who are watching into the ProGuides.com platform, in which we actually have private live streams just like this, but only for ProGuides premium members. So this is kind of what it looks like. And actually, he just finished streaming, but this is a preview of it though.
Because it says that you were like silver, bronze, silver, gold, and now you're obviously like a platinum player.
So right now, this instructor, his name is Zyrene. He's actually a very famous League of Legends player. He has over 100,000 followers on Twitter alone. And right now, a lot of people are trying to play live with him. So this is a game lobby for the game called League of Legends. And there's over 9 slots open, and he's going to choose lucky fans to play with him. And then he's going to talk about what they're doing wrong, how they can improve, and give a lot of constructive criticism. Now at ProGuides.com, this is the actual platform itself. When you sign up to be either a free or pro member, you get an experience where you can actually watch all the courses directly on your dashboard. There's also report cards that you can receive from the coaches themselves. And then to actually get a coach on the platform, you can see right here, there's over 61 coaches logged in right now. And if you just look at League of Legends alone, there's 24 coaches online. You can actually scroll down and you can see that there's 8 actually in session. So these are literally live right now as we speak. Coaches actually coaching other players on the platform. And if you ever want to get a coaching lesson, you can just choose a coach. You can review their reviews. You can see their description. It goes into a lot of detail about what they're good at. This coach in particular has 5 stars, average over 210 reviews. That's great. And I can actually book it right now. And we guarantee within 30 seconds, they will accept, just like Uber. And they're going to actually get into a game with you and help you get better. It's that easy. And now here's the new live classes. So right now, we don't have a class going on right now at ProGuides. It's going to go on in about, I think, 45 minutes. Let's see. Yeah, so we have actually a Super Smash Brothers class coming up. It's pretty cool. In 52 minutes. Bonk is a pro player for Super Smash Brothers, and you're going to see something similar to what you saw on YouTube, but in a more premium format and with a smaller audience, only for ProGuides Pro members. And then you can also see the upcoming classes today. Like we have another one for League of Legends at 5:30. And then tomorrow we have another 4. You get the idea. So yep, that's a demo of ProGuides.
Thank you so much, Sam. And sorry, everyone. But my co-founders, Isaac Castro and Mauricio Turan, co-founded Emerge 4 years ago. And we had this vision that is to create a new paradigm for human connection. Years ago, we had actually thought that the #1 problem in the world for us to solve that we were passionate about was to overcome the limitations that we're all facing today, being physically distant, which is we're just so lacking in feeling present and connected with loved ones when we're not physically with them. And so we went about the solution in a very radical way. We actually decided to incorporate a new sense of communication into our how we communicate from a distance. And firstly, we thought that touch added a lot of value and was missing because it is something that just bonds us together when we're really with someone that we care about. And so I'm going to share my screen and show you a few things. And we don't have as much to share, unfortunately, because we haven't launched yet. But if you go to our website, what you'll notice is something a little bit cryptic. What this represents is 2 people that care a lot about and for each other, obviously. And when you're not with someone, we ask ourselves, is there a way that you can actually still connect with them? The goal is to not replace this in-person experience, but just enhance it when you're not with someone. It's the exact same thing that we're all doing right now. I don't think that you're all physically here with me right now, but it is much better than just a phone call or just, a messenger pigeon for that. And so we have created a technology that is actually allows you to do this. So imagine something like the virtual high five when you can actually feel someone there. And if you go to our website info page, you'll actually see a really brief sneak peek at this in action. And so we have a hardware software device that allows you to physically feel virtual objects that are not there. And we primarily work in the immersive environment, so AR, VR, and we can define some of those terms later. But people that are familiar with that space know that you're just a ghost in that environment. As soon as you try to reach out and touch something, you cannot. It's a little difficult to show you in this video, but you just have to believe me that you can feel this ball virtually if you ever tried our technology. And that's our goal, is to overcome some of these limitations that exist in this version of computing. The ultimate vision, though, is to actually create a new language of touch. So we're not trying to actually create or replicate the real world, but we ask ourselves, what is the end goal of touch? it's actually not to feel how the real world feels. I don't really care to feel how hard this, case feels or feel a rock in VR. What we're really passionate about and interested in creating is a new language. How do you feel emotion? How do you feel happiness? How do I understand how I'm feeling today and transmit this to my grandma who lives in Mississippi? And how can I actually feel how she's feeling today? And so we're pretty excited because we're actually right at the cusp of launching and engaging with a few select developers over the next few months. Because of COVID-19 and this acceleration of telepresence technologies, which we'll talk about later, we're actually also contemplating accelerating a consumer product in the market. And then we're also getting a lot of interest from various partners in the industry that are around 5G, communication technologies, and are thinking about creating some type of council where we actually ask ourselves, how can we push past the limitations of current communication technologies and create some really radical solutions? Because we're all getting really zoomed out, right? I'm sure many of you on the call have been on hundreds of webinars, perhaps, or dozens at least. And we're really craving new ways to interact with one another. And that's what we've been building.
Awesome. So I think it's super important to kind of define at this point the difference between virtual reality, augmented reality, and XR cross reality, because it's easy to hear the terms, but it's kind of difficult if you aren't familiar to understand what the differentiating factors are. So can you define those for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure many of you have seen, at least in movies, at the very least, VR, which is you put this thing on your headset currently, it blocks out your current reality and transports you to another reality. So that is virtual reality. There are many other variations of this. Another major version is called augmented reality, where you see your current existing surroundings. Maybe you have some very thin, transparent glasses on. Maybe you have slightly more bulkier versions for enterprise solutions. And you can actually have digital objects overlaid onto your existing reality. So in an augmented reality example, you might have a digital pet right here on my desk, and I could be petting it. And so there's a huge realm in between augmented and virtual reality. And the inevitable future is you will have a device that is able to blend and transition from complete virtual, complete isolation or teleportation to another world, to augmented reality, to where you have your existing reality. The entire field is called extended reality, or XR. And that's been pretty much the accepted term as of last year. There's been a lot of attempts to call it other things like mixed reality, but right now people in the industry just call it XR as the catch-all for all technologies that are immersive.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So this question is for the both of you guys. I'll start with Sam first. What has been the impact of COVID-19 on your business, and what is the adoption rate from now to before? So before, what was your growth rate like, and what does it look like now?
Sure. I can't go into too many details with our direct growth rate right now, just because we have a lot going on, I guess you could say. I can just say it's very exceptional, and we're very fortunate to be in that position. I want to take a step back. I think that the macro of esports and gaming in general has really just grown during COVID. And the reason why is because, initially COVID started out just in China, right? And they had a shutdown. In Japan, they shut down schools. But once they did the same thing in the US, where they actually were like shutting down schools, everyone started just to stay home. I mean, that's just the way it was. And for us in particular, that was primarily kids who were in middle school and high school, who already wanted to play Fortnite all day, and now they can do it, literally. Gaming has seen a 45% increase in just actual engagement this last month alone. And then streaming platforms, which are used to watch esports and engage with just live stream game content, like Twitch TV, have grown over 33% just in 1 month. Now, I'm not sure long-term how sustainable that is, but what I will say is that I think this is a very big inflection point for gaming in general. And the reason why is because, with other sports and traditional industries like that not being able to actually work right now, it's now giving esports a spotlight. Even recently, ESPN was actually broadcasting esports because they didn't have anything else to broadcast. And people were now adopting it. People from different generations, different demographics were watching it. And they were like, wait, this is pretty cool. And as a result, it actually became a huge growth driver for actual game publishers themselves, because now they have a free user acquisition channel from all the new demographics wanting to try out games. So yeah, overall, I would say the impact has been quite positive for us, and we're just very fortunate to be in that position.
I mean, it's interesting. I remember seeing esports in action several years ago at an AT&T conference, and it was positioned in such an interesting way. Like, everyone used to be hyped about the new superstar athlete that just got drafted, and now that athlete is like your 16-year-old student playing his gaming console, right? Yeah. So can you talk about the monetization strategy of the business and where you see that going?
Well, it's definitely changing. And, platforms like ProGuides is obviously helping make that impact. I've always believed that there's so many pros out there, but only a very few of them used to be the ones making all the money. It was a long tail distribution model. If you go to Twitch, what do you think? You think of Ninja, right? Or I guess Mixer now. But you don't think of like the small guys who still get, plenty of views, who have a lot of traction in social media. And we want to start, create opportunities for them, because they actually are extremely good at the game. They have their own kind of niche followings, and they deserve to monetize, just like athletes who may be in the lower division in college sports, or might be on a team that's like less well known in the NBA, whatever it is, right? Every athlete basically has a huge following, basically has a huge salary. Like, we want to see that same model go into esports. And I think that's happening today. But outside of that, what's really cool about esports is that, unlike traditional sports, the barrier of entry is like so low. Literally, you need a computer and internet, that I think that you can actually see people who are like celebrities, like Justin Bieber, play a game like League of Legends, right? And they'll get just as many views as they would singing a song. And I think that's kind of the magic, because you probably wouldn't want to watch Justin Bieber play soccer. So I think that's also a major difference. And again, monetization, it comes natural. They monetize off ads, they monetize off streaming platforms, whatever it is. There are plenty of options. They can even go to ProGuides if they want to start coaching. So I think that's really cool. And
you obviously, I mean, that was the 16-year-old child, right? But you guys have a really wide range in age. What's the demographic?
Very broad. So right now it's still very male dominant, but that is changing. We're seeing more females enter the space. But generally male, 13 to 35 years old. And what we've seen is that the demographic is based off the game itself. So League of Legends, for example, has an older demographic, more of my generation, Gen Y as they call it, 18 to 35. But Fortnite is a younger generation, so it's more like 13 to 18.
Okay, awesome. And then Sly, I mean, people are fiending for another way to connect. Like you talked about Zoom earlier. What kind of growth are you seeing with Emerge? Or at least what kind of inquiries are you seeing?
Yeah, I think I might even want to step back and look at the bigger picture in that even apart from Emerge, people are looking, just like you said, for ways to connect. I had a conversation with Sam last week, and I think he falls in the same category, which is why we're in this webinar. People are craving new ways to connect across the board. In our specific industry, we've seen something similar as Sam, in that if you look at AR and VR on what's called the Gartner hype cycle, which is this trend that emerging technologies tend to follow, where there's a lot of hype, and there's this trough of disillusionment, then it comes out, the slope of enlightenment. VR and AR is on the curve of slope of enlightenment. And we think at Emerge, and what we've seen actually firsthand, is that COVID-19 is going to accelerate it, we think. There's been a massive increase in investment and development by major companies even before COVID-19. And we think that with COVID-19, it's just going to accelerate that. And one example, and I can share my screen here, is that towards the end of last year, we saw for software engineers, AR, VR focused ones just increased over 1,000%. And we saw that firsthand because it was difficult to hire AR, VR engineers this year. There's been massive investments in acquisitions by Facebook and Apple in the last month during COVID-19. And so we think that falls within the bigger trend of people accepting in adopting telepresence solutions, even people that would be late adopters. Take my grandma or like baby boomers that would have probably never used Zoom, and now Zoom has become a household name. It's fascinating because it's an enterprise solution that's being force functioned into very personal scenarios. Weddings are being hosted on Zoom now. People's birthday parties. I attended one last week. And so I think there is a huge opportunity that Emerge could address, because we have been trying to solve that and building toward a solution towards that for years. So specifically for Emerge, we have gotten a lot of inbound, actually, even though we have very little marketing. We will be launching a website soon. But even with the minimal website that we do have, we've gotten inbound from developers and consumers. Everyone that we've met in the last 5 years have actually remembered us and our mission and reached out and said, we need to accelerate. We need your product right now. And then also investors, which is interesting because we've seen most investors kind of go into a hole or pause investments, but investors like M13 that understand consumer trends and behaviors have been interested in seizing opportunities, the silver lining that might come out of this.
Awesome. So one of the things I want to kind of address, and it's been in the news a lot lately, is folks trolling on Zoom, or Zoom bombing is what they're calling it. They've had a ramp up in their security measures, obviously, and the platform is under a lot of scrutiny. And of course, they're working diligently to try and recover. What consumer behaviors are you all seeing with your platforms, and what security measures are you taking to make sure your customers are safe?
Yeah, I think I want to touch something real quick that it was interesting to hear this from Sam last week as well. What I've personally seen, and then my teams also share this, my co-founders shared this, that in VR and AR, people that are using it now are just nicer. And I don't know if that's actually a result of COVID-19 and people becoming more human on one end, or if it's just the fact that the last hype cycle of AR VR, 4 or 5 years ago, people were really mean that were using it. There were trolls that were using it. They make fun of you if you did something wrong. But now, we bought a VR headset for every one of our employees to use at home. And I hadn't put one on in years specific because we mostly focus in AR. But in VR, people were really nice. I was trying to play some games, and I'm terrible at it because I used to be a gamer, but it's been like 10 years since I have picked up a game. But this 10-year-old was coaching me on what I was doing wrong, and it was a complete stranger, and it was really inspiring. And I've seen that across other games. And I asked Sam the same thing. Is he seeing that in his world? And Sam, maybe you want to share a little bit there.
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to. Actually, it's very funny because I think, Sly, we were talking about this, but even in gaming, it's a similar kind of mentality where everyone likes to troll each other. And, if you were to look at a gamer 10 years ago, you would hear a lot of cursing, right? And playing Call of Duty on the couch and just yelling when you lose. But actually at ProGuides, we've always been, focused on inspiring people to be better, to work as teammates, not against each other. And surprisingly, in these live classes, we were able to witness a firsthand experience where people are just so friendly. Look, you might be a high level player watching this class, and you might see someone who's way lower level than you playing this game. And you could just say in the chat, this guy sucks, he's not good, or whatever, right? But actually, if you look at the ProGuides chat, we probably get about 100 chats per minute or more. It's not. And I'm shocked myself. It's very positive. And it's this guy's actually pretty good. Give him some credit, So I think it's definitely changing. And to that point, Sequoia, I think for Zoom, I think the trolling is more just to create content personally, because on YouTube, for example, it's a movement right now where people are creating that kind of content because it's funny. But I think over time, just like any other movement, it's going to go away. And, once they solve the security problem, I don't think it's going to be a major issue.
Awesome. That's great. So guys, I want to just remind you that we will be answering questions at the end of the webinar. So there is an ask question button at the bottom of your screen. So make sure you put your questions in there so I can make sure I get to those and they can answer those for you guys. So we're going to take a quick pivot and talk a little bit about investments. So of course, we're investors in both of your companies. We've invested in ProGuides because we believe highly in the esports trend. And we've invested in Emerge because we believe in telepresence and immersive platforms. we know why we made the investments, but why do you think investors should be paying attention to these new types of connectivity tools?
Yeah. First of all, we've been thrilled to work with M13. I think the model that M13 exemplifies is very unusual. It's really unique to have such a close partner, and we've been able to leverage M13 partners. And you mentioned it earlier, Sequoia. Every one of the investment partners are operators, and that's been really helpful in terms of empathizing what the challenges we're going through, helping us avoid the stumbles and roadblocks that we might not have seen previously. We've really enjoyed working with M13. And I think a piece of advice that investors might already know that are on this call is that even though budgets are tight now with COVID-19, the industries that are doing really well are actually ones that we overlap in: gaming, telepresence, and consumer hardware. At least the last time I checked in the Lion Tree Advisors report 2 weeks ago. People are stuck at home. They're bored. They're willing to adopt technologies they never would have bought otherwise. Generation Alpha, I learned that term just yesterday, actually. It's people born 2010 and later. These are actually children of my generation, although I don't have kids yet. These are people that are willing to adopt emerging technologies more than ever, more than any other generation. And what's really interesting is that new scientific reports have come out that have shown that that generation and Generation Z and even millennials, are using technologies and new types of technologies to solve problems that previous technologies caused. So you can see this with feature phones coming out that do just simple things instead of everything, like this computer here. You're seeing this in the mental wellness and social wellness space too, people that want to take care of themselves and stay connected with other people. And that's across gaming, telepresence, and devices.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think Sly said it perfectly. A funny anecdote, actually. Last week, I was looking at selling my Oculus Quest. I bought it about 6 months ago, just because I haven't had time to use it. I've been so focused on work. But it was funny because they're selling like $200 over sticker. And I was like, wait, what? Best Buy sold out everywhere. You have to go on eBay now. You have to buy over sticker. People are hoarding them, and they're selling like bundles of Oculus Quests for thousands of dollars. And I think that goes, that just shows that people are at home and they want to do something fun. They want to explore something new that previously they haven't had the time to do, right? Most of us work 8-hour days or longer. And so this is the first time ever where consumers can just explore and try out new technologies. And I think, like to your point, Sly, if you were to look at even companies like NVIDIA, Netflix, Zoom, I mean, these companies are actually, Netflix today actually just breached their all-time high. They're actually trading at higher than they ever have. And it's because they're going to continue growing regardless of the economic environment. People love the product, and a good product will always succeed. And again, I think fortunately for us, we're in a similar boat to Sly in that, we have great partners, M13, obviously. Shout out to Gotham as well, our partner. Absolutely exceptional. They're all operators. And, I think we've had probably even more inbound interest than before from investors. And I think part of that is just because, again, the movement of gaming, esports, VR, AR, XR, whatever, like it's all just going up. And so it's great.
Awesome.
And maybe a takeaway of all that could be that consumer behaviors are changing, and they will change even after we solve COVID-19. That's very interesting because we've been talking a lot about that at our company, and also with our lead investor in M13, Latif Paracha. We believe the handshake will go away, at least in terms of how much and how prevalent it was previously. There will be new forms of handshakes, like you've seen videos of people, touching feet, which is pretty funny. But it'll still be here, and people will still do it, but people will be more open to new types of connecting. And that's actually very in line with what we've been trying to create on our platform, which is what is the new virtual handshake. It probably doesn't have to be this. It might be more imaginative or more emotive.
Interesting. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into some questions. There is a question from Jason, and he's asking, what sorts of industries are you looking to integrate into these technology spaces? I've been trying to bridge literature, immersive experiences, and gaming. That sounds like an investor question, and I am on the product side. So if specifically you want to ask this question to one of our partners, you can email us at info@m13.co. Cool. So if you guys have any other questions, go ahead and drop them in the questions box. Otherwise, I'm going to give these guys some last words to end on. Sly, do you want to go ahead and give us your last hoorah before we go ahead and close this out?
Yeah. Let me look what I didn't cover so far yet. We covered that consumer behaviors are shifting. People are adopting telepresence solutions. Immersive computing is on the rise. We also have this really interesting theory, which is unproven yet, that let's see if it is a lasting effect, but people are more empathetic now because of COVID-19. And there's some interesting research that I was listening to a podcast over the weekend where in a crisis, people tend to be more empathetic to other people because they can envision people having it worse than them. And that's really interesting because our entire philosophy has been around creating empathy using technology, which was a very contrarian view before, but I think people are more likely to understand that now and are more likely to try to communicate and connect with people they otherwise might not have done before. Work-life balance, I think, is going to go away. We never really believed in that phrase at Emerge. We always talked about work-life harmony because it's impossible, I think personally, to leave work at work and home at home. They intertwine, and what we're seeing is this situation of working from home is leveling everything. People are having to become more human, because in the background, people's kids are running around and their dogs are coming up to them, and they can't just be, their cold person that they might have been at work. So we are very excited about this huge shift in people being more human towards one another and people valuing the human connection. I see it on our streets, like people in our alley gathering around, like staying really far apart, just having happy hour beers every now and then. And so we are excited about this huge shift, and we think it's going to also happen online or virtually as well.
Have you seen the show Black Mirror? And do you think we're going to get to that level in terms of technology?
It's really funny because I was going to ask something similar to Sly, because I was watching a lot of Black Mirror recently.
Okay.
And there's definitely a lot of kind of, correlations with what he's building, I would say. I think that at the end of the day, for me, from what I've observed from consumer trends in general, it's all about balance. Like right now, post-COVID, people are going to be a little bit scared. They're going to be on edge. But over time, they're going to hop on the new trend, which is let's start going to restaurants again. Let's start going shopping again, right? They're probably going to do that a lot, and then they're going to go back to normal. And at some point, the question is like, what is the norm? But at the end of the day, I think that the world is moving forward very fast. If you were just to look at like how people use iPhones today or TikTok or Instagram, like they're obsessed. And I would say that people are spending probably like 8 or even 12 hours on their screen. So with Sly's technology, I could definitely see a lot of parallels with Black Mirror because people are going to be obsessed with using it. They're going to, in VR today, which is different than XR. XR is more immersive, but in VR, people are actually already getting addicted. Some people prefer to live in a VR world than they would in the real world. I mean, I think that's all very realistic. My favorite example of kind of how big I think VR or AR, XR can get is I look at games like World of Warcraft, because I like to go into gaming as analogies. But back in 2008, I still remember when World of Warcraft released, and people literally spent like 16 to whatever amount of hours per day on it. Like they were actually addicted. They built their friendships on World of Warcraft. And so if World of Warcraft were in a virtual world, you can only imagine what that's going to be like. And because it basically becomes a real world for most people. That's just my opinion, though.
I actually love Black Mirror. I've seen every episode, and I think that's because I love sci-fi, but I also see it as a warning of what could go wrong if we don't design technology with empathy. If you look at the history of any technology that's ever been invented, there's always been the potential for it to be used for nefarious purposes or not so great purposes. when newspapers came out. It's pretty funny. I heard this last year. People were thinking that it would take away from people talking to each other because people would just be reading their newspapers, all the time. And the same thing happened with phones, computers, the internet, you name it. So there's absolutely the risk there. And I think we're well equipped because we've brought really smart people onto our team and advisors and investors that can help us design a platform that helps people connect and feel connected rather than divide people apart. Because there is that danger, like Sam was mentioning, of people just living in this virtual world. And we've always designed our solutions around mixing the real world and the virtual space to enhance your reality. And we've always said from the beginning, the goal is to not replace your existence or your reality, but to enhance it or augment it when you can't be with someone that's not physically there with you.
Awesome. So guys, this was amazing. I'm super excited to have had both of you guys. And on behalf of everyone at M13, thank you so much for joining us. I want to send a special thank you to everyone who is a frontline worker right now, because obviously we're at home, we're going through these things, and there are people who are still out and experiencing everyday life. So I just want to let you guys know that you guys are truly appreciated. Trust me on that. And as for this webinar, we'll post highlights on the website and email you a copy and also a short feedback survey. So please be on the lookout for that and tell us what you think. And also don't forget to sign up to join our community, which will be releasing soon, our entire platform. You guys will hear a lot more about that. And you can do that. I left a little button at the bottom of the screen just by clicking that button. And also, last but not least, make sure you have fun and be responsible with your social distancing time. And please check out the tools for alternative ways to connect. Thanks, you guys. See you later.